And so we're going to start, I'll just do brief introductions. We've got Speaker Melissa Hortman on the far left, who's now Speaker after several terms. We've got Representative Paul Torkelson, who's Minority Deputy Deputy Minority Leader in the House for the House Republicans. We've got Senator Liz Bolden, who was in the House last year and is in the Senate this year as an Assistant Majority Leader, and then Senator John Dzinski, also Assistant Minority Leader. So we've got a good group of folks here who are just going to drop all kinds of knowledge on you. It's going to be amazing. And so the first thing, we talked a lot about this morning was the just really fast start that session is off to. I mean, the velocity of session, I think, is pretty amazing. And so, you've already passed some pretty significant bills, or are hearing them in committees, which, I think there's certainly a method there, but I think also too, maybe some questions about the ability of the public and stakeholders to participate in some of these discussions. And so maybe we'll start with Melissa Hortman to talk about kind of maybe the theory behind that and kind of how you think it's going, and are we getting the kinds of public input on these things that we should be. So I'll leave it to you, Speaker.
Sounds good. I think we might want the other mics off. It seems like we have an audio feedback issue. Maybe hopefully somebody can get on top of that. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad you're here. I'm pretty happy about the pace that we've set at the legislature this year. For several years, actually probably my whole 18 years at the Minnesota House, we've heard from folks across Minnesota who say, why do you wait and do everything in the last few weeks of May? And so we listened, we heard that, and we are trying to pass individual budget bills where people get to vote up and down on issues. For example, we did a bill to protect reproductive freedom. And normally that kind of bill would have been in a Health and Human Services policy bill. And if you wanted to vote for nursing home funding, you'd have to be pro-choice to vote yes on that bill. And we said, we've heard from Minnesotans, they want to see these issues taken separately, and they want to see us working through the whole session and not behaving like college students and waiting to do everything at the last minute. So that's part of the thinking behind ludicrous mode. And the other thing is we've got experienced leaders. Senator Kerry Dietzig has been there for a long time. We have a second-term governor, and I am starting years 19 and 20 at the legislature.
Representative Torkelson.
Well, thank you. It does feel right now like we're moving with speed for the sake of speed. I applaud the effort to pass individual bills. I think that's a good thing, that these individual issues get individual attention. But are they getting the attention they really deserve? I really don't think so in some cases. The public needs to know what's going on here, and they need to have a chance to testify and present their perspective on these various bills. And there are times when that just doesn't seem to be happening. It's just moving so quickly. As I talk not only to my colleagues in the legislature, but to others that watch the legislature, they're saying things like, I've been here for 19 years and I've never seen anything like this. It's dramatically different. And as far as the experience goes, yes, leadership has experience, but a third of the legislature is brand new. And they just come, there we go. A third of the legislature is brand new. They don't have the experience. So they need time to digest these issues and figure out their own perspective on the issues. We're trying to kind of in and out today.
Senator Bolden?
Yeah, so I would certainly echo the pace is much faster than I experienced in my first term in the House. And so I think that's a good thing. That is because there's a whole lot of work before us, and we recognize that. And the legislative session is only so long, and we have a hard stop. And so there's a lot to get done in that time. And so, when historically, in committee work, there may be, we sort of ease into things, and there's overviews from the departments, and we're passing bills already and moving bills through committees. And so there's lots to do, and we are doing it. And I think that, that's the work of the people. In terms of input, I will say one thing that I appreciate that we have is sort of a carryover from my first term and sort of pandemic term in the House, when we have, a lot of Zoom use during that time. is allowing testimony from, over Zoom, from folks who across the state who, maybe previously would not have been able to take a full day off of work and drive hours to St. Paul to testify for 2 or 3 minutes and then drive back home. We're now able to hear from those people, which is really, really valuable. And so we've had thus far some amazing testimony in committees, and I'm just really grateful for those who are, willing to come and do that and speak with us, and that helps us, pass better legislation.
Senator Jasinski.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. It's always fun to be with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. It is moving fast, there's no doubt about that, but it's one-party control, so obviously things do move fast because you don't really feel, I don't feel like we have a voice, and I don't think our voice is being heard, to be honest, and I don't want to be blunt about it, but we just got off the floor 30 minutes ago, and we took a vote, House File 1, which is the big priority, the abortion bill. And in our Senate rules, Rule 4.4, it says every single bill that has a financial impact on the state of Minnesota must be referred to the Committee on Finance. And they just voted that down on party lines, saying that no, it will not go to Finance, it's going straight to the floor. Folks, this has an impact on our state, on our budget, on the surplus, everything we're doing. And they voted it down on party lines, saying that it will not go to Finance. And I know that's in the minutia for a lot of people, but that's a serious thing. When you're not following the Senate rules of a bill that has a financial impact to the state of Minnesota, and they voted it down not to go to Finance and go straight to the floor, there's a problem. There's a problem. You have rules to follow rules, and when you're not following the rules, things are not good. I know they have the trifecta, but we still have to be heard. It's still, in Minnesota, it's still a split of about 51 or 51-48 or whatever, with the small numbers in there. It's about a 50-48 right now. Minnesota's been back and forth from one control to the other for the last 6 years, either 34-33, 33-34, back and forth. But I think we need to follow the rules and get more impact. And some of these bills that are coming through, I don't believe have been properly vetted. And everybody, when I went door to door in 2016 when I first ran, everybody's like, you got to get things done up there. We don't want the stalling or the block. But folks, we got to follow the rules, and we need input. And what's happening so far that I've seen, that's not always the case. Thank you.
So I just wanted to follow up a little bit on Senator Bolden's comments about being able to do testimony by Zoom. I do think that has been a good innovation carryover from the pandemic time. It certainly is good for folks in Greater Minnesota who, we've got folks here who have come here in person today who are, from Roseau and Thief River Falls and Laverne and all kinds of places that are not close to St. Paul. And so it is, I think, a great benefit that folks can testify by Zoom. I do also appreciate and wanted to pass along my appreciation that the House is now open fully and that we are able to have some more maybe normal interactions with House members as well. And I think that's a great benefit too. Moving on to the next thing. So the governor, as we know, finished rolling out his budget yesterday. Very much focused on children and families. I think with this idea of becoming the best state in the nation for kids. Maybe start with we'll start with Senator Bolden and go Jasinski, Portman, Torkelson. What is your understanding, at least right now, in terms of the Senate's plan, in terms of unveiling its budget, and what do you think some of the priorities in that budget should be?
Yeah, so in terms of the governor's budget, broadly speaking, really excited for bold investments and certainly that vision of making Minnesota the greatest state for kids to grow up is the work that we should be doing. And so, I'll say candidly that I don't have a deep understanding of every item on the governor's budget because we have been working really hard to get bills moving through the Senate. And so, as session goes on, we will dig deeper into that and certainly be bringing bills forward, moving them through committee in spaces like healthcare and childcare and education and making sure that families can afford their lives, making sure that everyone has what they need. We have an opportunity with sort of the landscape right now and with the resources that we have as a state to be sure that everybody has what they need, to be sure that we are investing in those spaces where we haven't done that for, in some cases, decades. And so as I said before, there's a lot of work to do, and I'm excited to do that work, and things are moving quickly, and so that will sort of progress as session moves along as we put those budget bills together.
Senator Jasinski, what do you think the priorities ought to be in around the budget process?
Well, thank you. And again, with an $18 billion surplus, we believe that Minnesotans are being taxed too much, and we want to get that back in long-term money back to you every week, every month, every year. A couple things we proposed that we did last year is a first-year income tax cut. That affects every single Minnesotan who pays taxes here in Minnesota. And this year we actually had a plan to cut the first-tier income and also eliminate the tax on Social Security, which a lot of our people across the aisle campaigned on the last several months before November. They wanted to do that as well, and now they're changing the tune a little bit on relieving the Social Security tax. So we want to get some tax relief. Minnesota's one of the, whatever different poll you look, it's about the 5th highest tax state in the nation. So we want to get money back. Everybody's dealing with their own prices at home of fuel costs going up, or electricity fees, or water and sewer, or all the things you're dealing with higher prices. We just got a proposed bonding bill that's showing a 20% inflation rate from the last bonding bill that was proposed in May, and admin is putting in 20%. 20%, folks. I don't ever remember seeing 20% inflation. So prices are going up. We're trying to get that money back into the taxpayers' pockets, so we want to do that. There's obviously some needs across the state for some infrastructure, wastewater treatment plants, water towers, sewage treatment plants, things like that, roads and bridges. So we want to get some money where it needs to go. We'd like to use some of that money for one-time funding, get some of these projects going and get some of that stuff done. I know back a couple years, and I don't specifically remember the budget numbers as much as I'd like to, but I think the last biennium was about a $54 billion budget. My concern, again, I haven't gone through the governor's new proposed budget yet, but I'm guessing it's going to go way up from $54 billion on a biennium. So that's something we should watch, because that's long term, that just keeps going. One-time funding is you can get some projects done one time and it doesn't continue into what we call the tails. If you increase everything, it continues on forever. So it's tough to, once you get that money in, to stop that. You can always get, ridiculed about cutting funding, but once you put that funding in, it's tough to ever take it back. So we want to get money, one-time funding for infrastructure, and get some money back into the taxpayers' pockets to make sure Minnesota's more competitive with our surrounding states.
Speaker Hart?
Yeah, I would echo what Senator Bolden said. We've all been pretty busy at work this week, so we haven't had time to digest the governor's budget proposals that have come out this week. And what you'll see is each of the chairs of the various committees will introduce the governor's budget bills, and then those will be heard in committee. And so we'll really kind of dig into the details over the next few weeks. There are 3 shared priorities that really unite the Senate DFL, the House DFL, and the governor. Pretty simple, straightforward things, bread and butter issues for Minnesotans. We all believe that there should be excellent public education from preschool all the way through career and technical education. Secondly, we all think that healthcare should be affordable and accessible no matter where you live in the state. You should be able to access healthcare that you need at a price that you can afford. And third, we all believe that we should have an economy that works after a very tumultuous Republican gubernatorial endorsing convention where we almost ended up with the Libertarian candidate running for governor. So the way that I look at it, there's a lot of unfinished business that was left on the table in 2022, and Minnesotans expect, now that we're back in St. Paul, finish the work. Finish the work that you left undone in 2022. But a bonding bill requires cooperation from all 4 caucuses. I'm not sure if all 4 caucuses are ready to go. On the House DFL caucus, we are really ready to go. So we are ready to pass that $1.1 billion that was agreed to. That was kind of wastewater treatment, local roads and bridges, no member projects. I would pass that GO bill tomorrow if all 4 caucuses would agree. We have to do some adjustments for inflation because we did have a very real impact of inflation. But for our building trades workers, we have to keep the pipeline of projects going. We can't have a cliff in the transportation budget and a cliff in the capital investment budget where all of a sudden we're not building anything. We've got to keep moving things forward. And for all of you who have bonding projects that were up for consideration in 2022, you probably have different things you were going to bring to the Capitol in 2023. So I think we clear the decks, the 2022 stuff, and then we go ahead with the 23 bill. And that's an excellent use for one-time cash. So I'd like to do GO with all 4 caucuses participating, but if we get to the end of the session and we don't have 4 caucus participation, we will use cash.
Well, thank you for that. I believe there's a good chance that we will pass a bonding bill early. There is a lot of talk, a lot of whispers. I as a former capital investment chair myself, I understand how challenging bonding is and how hard it is to actually get across the finish line. Of course, as everyone knows, it requires a supermajority. That does require Republican votes to get the bill across the finish line. But there was a good outline framework of a bill that almost made it last year, and I do believe building on that in a reasonable fashion could get something done. I think we could use a little more cash than we usually do because we have this huge surplus. It doesn't have to be as heavily, rely as heavily on borrowing. When we have so much cash around, we could use more cash to do a bill. But I hope it's done in a bipartisan fashion. I would not be pleased if we get to the end of session and the other party decides to pass an all-cash bill without Republican input. That's not a good tradition to set.
Sarah Bolden.
So I think we're hearing some agreement up here, which is good and probably bodes well for this happening. So I would agree. I think, there certainly are many projects that are shovel ready and waiting and have been, as we were, as was mentioned, close to it last year. And so I think there is desire and commitment and work happening in this space. And I anticipate, I'm hopeful that we will get to that point, and I'm hopeful that that could happen earlier rather than later. It does certainly will require cooperation and folks coming together. And I would say, I think the Senate DFL is ready to move on this expeditiously as well.
Thank you, and I was excited for a bonding bill last year. I really wanted one. I had a lot of projects. I know Otanis back there. We had a wastewater treatment plant that was very, very important. We had money in the bill for that. And I know many other cities are like that. Otani had to go ahead because they had the bids and they didn't want to wait for inflation, so they had to go ahead. So there's a lot of important projects out there. So again, the $1.1 billion, if we could do that, I think that would be great. We did not get to vote on that last year because it has to originate from the House, so we never got to be able to vote on that. But definitely think we should do one and make sure, I think we have to work together. It's about the only bill this year that we have to work together on, because with one-party control, this is the one bill that requires a supermajority. So this gives us a voice, and especially in rural Minnesota. If you look at the demographics and the votes and where the blue and where the red is in greater Minnesota. We need some of those projects. So let's balance that out, give equal representation across it, and continue on what we've done. We've used bonding not on a cash basis. And again, if it goes on a cash basis, they don't need any of our votes, and they can put everything through without any of our input or any of our projects. And I just hope it doesn't get to there. I don't think it will. I think we do have a pretty good working relationship this year, and I think there's been all great attempts to do that. The speaker's been great in the Senate with the House. I think we can do that, and I hope we can do that. But again, I would really caution against doing an all-cash bill in the end because it'll be one-sided on what the projects are in that, I believe. But let's get the quick bill done, the 1.1 that we had last year with this infrastructure, and continue those projects on. Huge thing is, as you know, either road contractors or wastewater treatment contractors, there's only so many of them. So if you influx too much money in 1 year, your prices are just higher, because when contractors get busy, they raise their profit margins up because they're busy and they can bid it higher. But if you keep a steady flow of money, it really keeps the market in control, and then you can see some contractors, as things are going up, they add some more contractors in that field if that's what's going on. But to up and down each year makes it really difficult, and we pay a much bigger price if we have unstable funding for those.
Just one more important point on bonding. Passing a bonding bill this year does not preclude passing another bonding bill next year. So those that have new projects that haven't been introduced or haven't been vetted yet, don't think that passing this year's bill means you're done, because I would support, and I would hope others would support, a second bonding bill in the second year of the biennium.
Yeah, no, I think bonding is one of the areas where we do see bipartisanship work, and I think it is proof that things can get done, and it bodes well, I think, generally. I think, Speaker Hortman, you maybe have to leave us soon. I was hoping to ask one more question, because I like to end on more fun questions. We did a survey amongst my friends for New Year's, asking a bunch of questions, and one of them was, what is your favorite month? So, Representative Hortman, what is your favorite month and why?
Well, this is not going to be a popular answer, but I think for me, it might be February because there's usually good snow and the right temperature for skiing. So for me, I like that 20 inches of snow and about 22 degrees. That's how I like it.
Representative Torkelson, your favorite month?
Well, I have a question for you. Did you use ranked choice voting when you?
No, we did not. I'm personally befuddled by how ranked choice voting works, and so we did not. But maybe next time.
That makes at least 2 of us. My favorite month, I think, would have to be July, because that's when my birthday is.
I would say my favorite month would be August, because I like the weather. It's hot, warm, love it. It's also a great door knocking month, which is one of my favorite things to do. So for all of those reasons, August.
Thank you. So I would usually say June because that's my birthday month and it's the middle of summer, but I have a lake property in Faribault and June is weed season. So all the weeds are coming off the lake in June. So I'm always busy raking weeds off my shoreline. So it's not my funnest month. So I'm going to pick July because the weeds have pretty much stopped by then. The weather's nice. People are out. It's 4th of July. We can celebrate lots of things and it's just a great time in southern Minnesota on a lake.
12.
Is it 12?
All right, July 12th, we're all going to Jasinski's place to celebrate Torkelson's birthday. Yeah, well, as you can see, you're going to need a lot of room. So, thank you all for your time and coming here and for your public service. We really do appreciate working with all of you. I think we are blessed to have some thoughtful first-class legislators, and you guys are at the top of the list there. So thank you so much. Let's give them a hand. And let's